because this will teach you the business of law. This is the DNA of the business of law. And for those of you who are young lawyers, aspiring lawyers, and we all know the old lawyers, if you can't get excited and happy about what you're doing in your job or your profession, then you're not going to go anywhere. And the goals are even worthless, right? We all know that. We all know that with a positive attitude, with a love of what we do, and thinking smart, and not dealing with those C clients, and not answering the phone, and not taking those emails, et cetera, that we can have phenomenal careers. So I think what really surprised Professor Calfee when I showed up, besides the fact that I made him engage in the workshop, and he was too embarrassed to do it, but what really engaged him was when I started talking about session 2, the subconscious mind. That, you know, we think that we are this one person. We think that we are the scientist. On the slide I have up there, there's a pretty good book I read that talked about this, this particular psychologist, and it was a book about the psychology of money, by the way. It was a pretty good book. But if you picture in your brain 3 brains, there's the scientist brain, which is analytical, logical, knows what's going on, and that's the one that we think we are. And that's the one that our clients think that they are. They think they know, they understand. There's no engineers in the room, but of course the most difficult client is an engineer, because they think they know and they don't understand the emotional part, and they even make up the rules and think that their rules are right and our rules are wrong. And then there's the reptile brain, which has fight or flight, tremendous adrenaline, significant need for ego recognition, significant need for security. That reptile brain is what slams your brakes on when some child runs in front of you in the car. You don't even think about it. That's the reptile brain. It shoots adrenaline through you as if a saber-toothed tiger was going to kill you, when all it is a client complaining because they didn't get the right number of copies. Right? It's that reptile brain. It does not always serve us well. And then there's that monkey brain. All those thoughts coming through us, right? And how we deal with that in our personal life, and how we deal with that in our professional life, and how we deal with our clients knowing that they are going through this experience. No, we can understand the experience, and I think you're going to understand the experience, and I'm going to understand the experience after Srikumar says what he's about to say. But the clients, the referral sources, our team members, they don't necessarily have this information. You can remind them about this information, and in fact you can tell them about this information and be the most valuable advisor that they've ever had. And you can use this information, you know, much to your advantage. So you're in this space-time continuum. I'm on the space-time continuum page, which is in the big outline. What's going on in this head of mine? I've got my past on the left-hand side, page 35 inside the small notebook. But I boiled down this notebook to fit it into 500 pages. So I'm on page 35. But we have our past. We have things that happened to us in our past, good and bad. We have things we're guilty about. We have things that our brain hides from us. And then we have the present, where we are today, but we're further distracted by the future. So the person who can handle all of this, and who has a great operating system to handle all of this, can have tremendous successes and tremendous enjoyment of those successes. If you go to page 39, if you just picture what's going on, the past keeps talking. You've got what Srikumar is going to tell you is called mental chatter. It's all this stuff that you're saying to yourself. But you didn't say it. Something else said it. The subconscious mind shoots it out at you. It's distracting. It changes your viewpoint. And then you've got the now. And then you've got the worry about the bad stuff. And what Srikumar is going to do now is he's going to give you some really good advice on how to handle this stuff. And I want you to understand this advice not only for yourself, and of course we're all here primarily for ourselves because that's part of the human nature, but I want you to think about how this affects your clients. What's going on in their mind? How is this affecting your law professors? How is this affecting your mother? How is it affecting your staff? So, Srikumar, at this point, I normally play your TED Talk.
Right.
Has anybody seen Srikumar's TED Talk? Okay, well now you are not going to have to see Srikumar's TED Talk because Ted is here.
But he'll send you a link to my TED Talk anyway. I want to give you a little bit of history as to how I came to do what I do. And what happened is I came to America as a student, and I came to do my PhD, and I really didn't have any interest in doing a PhD at all. But I did have a huge interest in coming to America, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that if you want to come to America, it's a very good idea to come on somebody else's nickel if you can manage it. And there were all these great universities saying, "Dear Mr. Rao, come do PhD, we'll give you a fellowship, that means money." So I said, yes, I'll do PhD. And I came to Columbia because it was in New York, and that seemed like a good thing to do, so that's how my life went. So I came here and I started my PhD at Columbia, and then I dropped out to work for corporations, and I was incredibly successful in my younger days, you know, like a rocket literally. In my early 20s, I was head of corporate research for Warner Communications, reporting directly to the president. And then I got burnt out by corporate politics, and I thought, I have a PhD, let me go to universities where there is no politics. It was a very naive view of the world. By the time I found out how alive and well politics was in the university environment, I'd already made the transition. But then I basically stagnated. And then I woke up one day, and I was in my 40s at that time, feeling really sorry for myself. You know, here I had brilliant education, great early career, and now I'm getting nowhere, and all my peers have far exceeded me, and woe is me, and I was really feeling sorry for myself at a great pity party. Now, all my life I'd been doing a lot of reading, spiritual biography, mystical autobiography. They would take me to a very nice place, and then I came back to the real world, and it sucked. And I remember clearly thinking, if all of this is useful only if you're sitting quietly thinking peaceful thoughts, but not when you get into the hurly-burly, then it's useless. But somehow I knew it wasn't true. Somehow I knew that this was very valuable, maybe even the only thing that was very valuable. I just hadn't figured out how to make use of it. So one day I came up with my bright idea, which is, why don't I create a course where I'll take the teachings of the world's great masters, strip them of religious, cultural, and other connotations, and adapt them so that they're acceptable to intelligent people in a post-industrial society. The thought of doing something like that made me come alive. Yes. Now, I was a marketing guy, remember? So up until that time, every time I came up with a bright idea, my immediate question was, will others be interested? Is there a market for it? And if I thought there was, I'd develop it, and if not, I'd drop it. This was the first time I didn't ask the question. In fact, my initial hypothesis was, I teach MBAs. We all know what motivates MBAs. Nobody's going to register for the course, but that was fine. If they did, wonderful. If they didn't, God bless them. But I was going to do that course. I was going to create that course because I needed it for me. So I did. And I offered it for the first time in 1994. It did well. I modified it, I offered it again. It did better. I moved it to Columbia Business School in 1999. And it exploded. It was the only course at Columbia which was a university-wide draw. I had students from law school, from the School of International and Public Affairs, from business school, from teachers college, from journalism, all over the place. And then it spread by word of mouth. I've taught it in many of the world's top business schools. It's been written up all over the place, Fortune, Forbes, Business Week, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, and I have a TED Talk, I have 2 books. The reason I mention all of that is underlying this success are 2 things, which is the problems that I was facing were by no means unique as part of the human predicament. And the fundamental building block of what I came up with, and I didn't come up with it, I just drew, as I said, from the greatest masters the world has ever known, is exactly what Alan pointed out, which is we have within our brains something that we typically don't even recognize. It's called mental chatter. Mental chatter is an internal monologue that you have going on in your heads all the time. It begins when you get up in the morning, is with you right through the day, is with you right now when you should be listening to my chatter rather than your chatter, the kind of thing that goes, do I have mental chatter? What is mental chatter? Get something out there. Do I have mental chatter? That's the mental chatter that I'm talking about. You have it. It's so much a part of your life that until I explicitly pointed it out to you right now, you probably didn't even recognize you had it. But now that you know you have it, you're not quite sure, well, what does this have to do with anything? The short answer is it has to do a lot with every part of your being, because you construct your life with your mental chatter. Let me repeat that. You construct your life with your mental chatter. You think you live in a real world, you don't. And if you've seen The Matrix, the original Matrix, I was teaching at Columbia in '99 when a whole bunch of my students came up and said, Professor Rao, there's this wonderful new movie that's come out and it talks about the same things that you do and you got to go see it. So of course I saw it, and it was The Matrix. And it really was a wonderful movie, and it really is relevant to you because every single one of you is living in the Matrix. Only this is a matrix that you constructed, not a matrix constructed by an alien civilization out to enslave you. You constructed it. And you constructed it with your mental chatter and with your mental model, so there's another construct we're going to get to a little bit later. So you build your world with your mental chatter. Now I want you to think about something. Every time something happens to you, what you do is you immediately tell a story about that to yourself. The story that you tell about it to yourself is also your mental chatter. But you never recognize that what you're doing is you're telling a story about it to yourself. You think this is real. No, it's not real. It's a story. And that story exists in your head. So let me give you an example of that. There is a movie which just came out, and it's one of the most successful Bollywood movies of all time. It's Denicolo. I think it's the second highest grossing film. I think it's still playing in the theaters, and if so, I would encourage you to go see it. You can see it it has subtitles. And if not, it'll be shortly available on DVD. You can go get a copy of that, and again, it'll have subtitles. But I'll tell you a little bit of a spoiler, but I'm going to go ahead anyway. So it basically talked about a guy who was a wrestling champion, and he never managed to get a gold for India because he didn't have access to advanced training facilities, and he didn't have the money to spend time, training for that. So he did pretty well, but he never got a gold, and it really bugged him. So he determined, yes, what I'm going to do is I am going to make my son a wrestling champion for India. And that was his goal right from the beginning. So his wife got pregnant, and he was extremely happy, but she delivered a daughter. So then his wife got pregnant again, and he was very happy, but she delivered another daughter. And then she delivered a third daughter. At which point he was ready to give up on his dreams. But one day, one of his village colleagues came up and berated him, and asked, well, what's wrong? And it turned out that his daughters had beaten up his sons. Apparently they had made lewd comments, so they got very upset and they beat him up. And he said, hey, what did you do? He went to his daughter, and she said, well, he said something he shouldn't have, and this is what we did. And then a light bulb went off. Hey, listen, you know, I'm going to have the gold come to my family and to the country. It doesn't have to be a son, it can be a daughter. So he started training them rigorously. Now here is the important point. His daughters resented it because he made them get up early in the morning and go on runs, and he put them on a very strict regimen, and they couldn't have all of the stuff that they wanted to, and they really, really resented it. Among other things, he made them, you know, shave their heads because, you know, you didn't get any lice if you shave your heads. So one day what happened is, from this strict regimen, the daughters escaped to go to the wedding of a cousin. And it was a festive occasion, they laughed and they danced and they, you know, had celebrated with her. And then they were sitting with the young bride, and both of this man's daughters complained. They said, oh my God, we live such a terrible life, and I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy. We get up in the morning, and we have this incredible regimen, we're not allowed to play, we can't see Bollywood movies, we can't say, oh, I wouldn't wish this on my worst enemy. And the young bride, who had just been married, burst out in tears, and she said, I'd swap places with you instantly. So they were kind of shocked, and she said, do you recognize how much your father cares for you? He is actually giving up his time and his life to helping you do something which will make you famous. Do you want to be like me? You know, where my father, and you got to understand that we're talking rural India now, and he says, you know, children are a burden, you know, daughters are a burden, because when you're born, then and you're a daughter, you're not contributing to the economic well-being, and you get married, and when you do, you have to pay a dowry. And, you know, my father is interested in getting me married, and he got me married because, you know, now he's rid of me. And, you know, that's a system. You know, you don't know how good you have it. And the next day, this guy gets up to wake up his daughters to the training regimen, which is normally a big chore because they get very different. He found neither of the daughters was there. And he goes off, and they'd already done half a lap on the training course, and they were busy going on. It completely changed their outlook. That is a perfect example of what I mean when I say how you experience life is based upon what is the story you tell yourself. So for a long time, both of these daughters were telling themselves the story that we've got a cruel, heartless father who's doing all of this. And as a result of the interaction with the young bride, all of a sudden they had a completely different perspective on that. And that not only changed how they experienced life, but it also changed what happened thereafter. And this is a complete spoiler, I'm going to tell it to you anyway. Both of them went down, and both of them won gold in the Commonwealth Games, one in 2012, one in 2014. And they were very successful wrestlers. And they were world class. They're competing right now for to train to be part of the Indian team for the Olympics. This is a beautiful movie. It's a very inspiring movie. It's also a great example of what we all do. So mental chatter is not an enemy. Don't go around, and by the way, a lot of the mental chatter is you beating up on yourself. In my full program, and by the way, I'm starting a new program in February, on February 24th, so if any of you are interested, talk to me about it later. The first exercise you do is a mental chatter exercise where you record what the hell is going on between your ears. And you'll be surprised at how many times it is destructive. Oh my God, I'm such an idiot. Why did I do that? I'm never going to amount to anything. I have no willpower. And there are all these other people who are so much more talented, who are so much better looking, and they weigh less, and their suit and their dresses fit them. And, you know, why am I like this? And I'm always doing stuff that I shouldn't have. And you're passing judgment on others. You'll be surprised at the crap you're carrying around inside your ears. and you act on it on a regular basis. You keep doing it because you don't even notice it. When you start noticing it, you'll find out how much there is of it. You'll also find out that how you experience life is entirely a function of the stories that you tell yourself. Understand, you can't eliminate mental chatter. It is there, it's not going to go away. Mental chatter is not the enemy, it exists, it is what it is. What you have to learn to do is recognize that it is or can be a tool. You utilize that tool carefully, and boy, you'll find that your mental chatter will get you to all kinds of good places as opposed to dragging you off to places that you don't want to go. It's entirely a function of, you know, I told you earlier that your awareness is like a flashlight and it lights up whatever you shine it on. You're going to learn how to use that flashlight to shine it on what you need to shine. So when you change the stories you tell about yourself and to yourself, you'll find it makes a huge, huge, huge difference in your life. Okay? Back to you, Alan.
What's the first question for Srikumar? Yes.
Would you consider it to be a logical extension of that, the concept of projection, all that inner conversation, inner dialogue that you throw on other people so you get angry at them
Yes.
when it's really your own issue?
Absolutely. 100% yes.
Thank
It
you.
is your own issue and you do project it onto others. We do it all the time.
Good.
I'm glad you recognize that, but yes.
That's a good question.
Srikumar, why don't you talk about your concept of a good thing versus a bad thing?
Talk it.
And
There's something that we do, and we do it multiple times every day, and it's extraordinarily deleterious to our well-being, and we don't even recognize that we're doing it. And what it is that we do is, the moment something happens, we stick a label on it. And in our label, we decide this is a good thing, or this is a bad thing. Think about that. Even something which is very trivial. You know, your spouse calls you and says, your in-laws are going to come for dinner on Friday. This is bad. They're going to stay for the weekend. This is really bad. Right? No matter what happens in your head, there's nothing neutral. It's either partly good or partly bad. Right? Okay. So I want to share a story with you. There are many versions of this story, but it's a Sufi story, and I like the version I'm about to share with you. There was a man and his son, and they lived in a beautiful valley, and they were very happy. They were also dirt poor. And the man got tired of being dirt poor, and he said, you know, I'm going to get rich. And he turned entrepreneurial, and he was going to get rich by breeding horses, so he bought a stallion. Did not have money to buy the stallion, so he borrowed very heavily from the neighbors. And the very day he got the stallion, it kicked the top bar loose from the paddock where he housed it and ran away. And the neighbors ran around and they said, you know, you were going to become a rich man, but your stallion has run away and you still owe us money. You are screwed. So he shrugged his shoulders and said, good thing, bad thing, who knows? That stallion fell in with a group of wild horses, and he was able to entice them into the paddock, which he had repaired, so escape was no longer possible. So now he had a stallion back plus a dozen wild horses, which by the standards of that village made him a wealthy man. And the neighbors ran around saying, gee, we thought you were broke and, you know, fortune has smiled on you. You are now actually a rich man. And he shrugged his shoulder and said, good thing, bad thing, who knows? The man and his son started to break the horses so they could sell them on the market. And one of the horses threw the man's son and stomped on his leg, and it broke and it healed crooked. And they came around commiserating. He was such a fine young lad, and now he'll never be able to find a girl to marry him. And he shrugged his shoulder and said, good thing, bad thing, who knows? And that summer, the king of the country declared war on a neighboring country, and press gangs moved through the villages, rounding up all the able-bodied young men. But they spared this man's son because he had a game leg. And the neighbors had tears in their eyes and said, "We don't know if we'll ever see our sons alive, but you still have your son. How fortunate you are." And he shrugged his shoulders and said, "Good thing, bad thing, who knows?" And it goes on like that forever. And the reason I invite you to think about this story is I want you to go back in your own life and consider, did anything ever happen to you which at the time it happened you thought this was terrible, but now you can look back upon it and say, "Hey, this was wonderful." Anybody? Can you think of that? So all of you have an experience of at least one thing that happened to you that at the time that it happened you thought was terrible, but you can now look back and say, "This was great." So, given that, is there the slightest possibility that what you are today about to label "this is bad," is there the slightest possibility that X years from now it could turn out to be pretty good? And if there is the slightest possibility that it could turn out to be good, why are you in a hurry to label it bad? Because the moment you label it bad, that is the instant at which suffering begins. Think about that. Suffering doesn't begin when something happens to you. Suffering begins at the instant you take what happened to you and say, "This is terrible, this is unbearable, this is bad." And the moment you say this is bad, at that instant suffering begins. So what happens if you don't label it bad? Guess what? Suffering doesn't begin. And what happens if you then take the next step and say, "Is there anything that I can do to make this really good for me?" And all of a sudden you're transported to a different emotional domain, and avenues of action open up to you that would not even have occurred to you otherwise. Nothing will faze you. You will become not resilient, but you will become what I call extreme resilient. Because you will bounce up from anything so fast that others won't even know that you've been laid low. This is a learnable skill. I remember I was speaking to the Global Leadership Conference for the Entrepreneurs Organization at San Diego. And I was telling this talk, and there was someone in the audience who wouldn't be silent, waving his hand, "Press her up, press her up." I said, "Okay, hey, you know." And it turned out that he was actually from India, and he'd come to America, and he did his master's degree from Stanford, and then he wanted to remain in America. So he joined a company, and he wasn't an H-1 visa, and he had reasonable chances of getting it transferred to a green card, but the company he joined failed. So all of a sudden, when he was running to the end of the H-1, it expired, the company was no longer in business, and he could not remain in the country. He had to go back. And he was really, really, really broken up because he wanted to remain in that. He said, "But you know, Professor Rao, I went back, and as a result of my going back to India, I met this lovely lady who became my wife, and I started a technology company, and it's doing, gangbusters. And I have to come back to America at least once a quarter because all my customers are in here, and I've never had it so good. Getting my visa turned down was the best thing that ever happened to me." Yes, I just had to share that with you because it's so relevant to the anecdote that you just related. It works like that. We have mental chatter going on all the time in our head. The mental chatter has the ability to drag us to dark places which we do not want to go to. And the interesting point is we go to those dark places and we never figure out that we weren't dragged there. We allowed ourselves to go there because we were ignorant of the processes by which that happened. But once you become aware that there is this stuff called mental chatter which is going on inside your head, and mental chatter is mental chatter, it is. you will get hijacked. You go turn on the news, read the headlines of the newspapers, and you will instantly be grabbed and taken to places. But if you recognize that this is happening, and if you are vigilant, and if you do the mental chatter exercise, which is, and I'm going to share that with you right now, which is you become aware of the fact that there is mental chatter, you don't allow it to carry you off, you become a witness and observe it happening. And as you observe it happening, you'll find that it loses a great deal of its power. And you actually have the ability, which we'll get into a little bit later, to direct your mental chatter. So all of a sudden now, it is no longer an enemy. It is a conscious tool that you use to take you where you have predetermined you want to go. You know what Alan had you do earlier to write down your goals, what you want to do in various areas of your life? That's freaking mental chatter. But this time, you're using it constructively to shape your life. That's what I mean when I say your life isn't real. It's a construct. You made it. It's not something that exists out there that you have to grapple with. It is something that you made. In all likelihood, you made it unconsciously. You're now being given the ability to make it consciously and shape it the way you would like it to be, as opposed to something that you put together higgledy-piggledy because you didn't know what you were doing. And the best part of it, as you grow and evolve, you will find that you're unhappy with what you created many times over. But now you have a tool. Whenever you become unhappy with it, you can tear down the pieces that you don't like and build it together again. And you can do this again and again. This is a rest of your life thing that you're going to be doing. And what Alan has just done is he's given you the tools with which you do that, and you're going to be using it, as I said, forever. Okay? Back to you, Alan.
Any questions for Srikumar? By the way, the tougher the question, the better the answer.
Yes.
Matt?
Yeah, yes, sir.
So I struggle with this tug of war in personalities where, trying to suspend critical judgment from something that might appear bad. But my critical judgment is really good. I mean, and trying to remain optimistic about something and suspending all judgment to let the good come in. And it's constantly, I'm going back and forth. And
correct.
As my partner will say, I tend to squash good ideas because my critical judgment kicks in and say, well, yes, but. But those are all good points. But at the same time, I'm closing off the door of opportunity to let the good stuff come in. So it's this constant tug of war that goes on within me.
Very true.
And I'm hoping you can give us some skills to.
I'm going to give my level best, Matt.
Okay.
So here's the deal. Most of the people in this room are compensated to make judgments. Look at Alan, he's an estate planning and tax attorney, and whenever something comes up, he's got a judgment, and here's a way to do it, or this is right, or you've really blown it, you're going to jail, whatever. He is paid for his ability to make judgments, okay? So there's nothing wrong with making judgments. What is wrong is not to be aware that you are making a judgment. So, when you say you make judgments and you're critical, don't try to stop yourself from, because you've been conditioned to make that anyway and you can't avoid it. But become aware of the fact that you're making judgment. And when you become aware of the fact that you're making a judgment, you are also open to the possibility that maybe your judgment was not the best one. So when you're consciously aware that what you're doing or what you're saying is not the fact, it wasn't handed down on tablets of stone by lightning striking from the sky, you say, hey, okay, this is a judgment, and it might be wrong, and I'm open to correction should it be necessary. And I have a judgment, I don't think it's a good idea, but let's play around with the idea that my judgment is wrong. And if I play around with the idea that my judgment is wrong, what could be the benefit of indulging in that course of action? what could be the downside, say, you know, I'm going to take a flyer and see what happens. Okay, and especially if there are people who are close to you who are arguing the other way, look at that and say, okay, I'm going to cut that person some slack, and even though I think it's a bad idea, I'm going to go ahead and do it, and who the hell knows, it might actually turn out to be a good idea. And if in fact it turns out to be a bad idea, don't ever make the mistake of saying, I told you so. Just say, okay, you know, next time around we'll do better. Look, you're going to go through life, you're going to make a lot of mistakes. Don't think of them as you made mistakes, think of it as I learned. You know, as when Thomas Edison said, you know, wasn't it awfully frustrating for you to have failed so many times? I said, I didn't fail so many times. He had something like 900 odd materials he tried before he got the incandescent filament right. And he said, I didn't fail, I just know 900 things that don't work. So treat that as your life. You know, life is a wonderful laboratory. And here is another thing. This is something we're going to go into later, but I'm just going to share it with you now anyway. What's your purpose in life? This is a really big one, so I'm certainly going to cover it tomorrow. I have another workshop tomorrow if any of you want to come, but maybe we'll cover it in a little bit in passing later on today. We think we're here to build a career, to become famous, to amass a great deal of money, or whatever it is that is driving you on. And I'm inviting you to change that around. What you're really here in life, and the only thing you ever do is you work on yourself. All of the stuff that is given to you, you're in a particular situation, you're in a career, you have a family, you're a parent, you're a spouse. All of these are tools that are given to you so that you can work on yourself. Some of these things you think are trivial, like, you know, what should you have for dinner? And some of these things you think are, oh, this is really important. This is my career. This is my spouse. This is my child. But it's all grist for the mill. You're given what you are and the roles that you're playing, and they're all tools that are given to you to work on yourself. And if you use those tools skillfully, you will find that you grow. And if everything that is given to you is a tool by which you work on yourself, there is no such thing as failure. There is simply something that you've used and you have grown, and regardless of what the outer consequence or the outer effects are, it's not a failure. It's something that you use to grow and develop. So you cannot fail, period. Failure is a label. And once you adopt that label, you just go into an emotional dark space. You don't have to go there. You can learn not to go there. You can learn to learn what you need to from this thing that you would have called a failure and relabel it. And then all of a sudden you find that every day becomes a blast. Okay? All right?
That's a hard act to beat. So, page 40. Here's the good stuff in your life. Here's the bad stuff. Where do you put the bad stuff? You put it right there, so you can't even see the good stuff, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's pretty amazing. So, always bring a basketball in your glove compartment. These are conversations that I have with clients. I have these conversations with clients. That yes, you've come to see me because of a bad thing. It might turn out to be a good thing. Certainly a good thing for me that you're here. A lot of clients came to see me in 2008 with the financial reversal for bankruptcy type planning. And then they got their wealth back and they died and they didn't pay estate tax. And the children have come to me of 3 different families and said, we're so glad that 2008 happened because you saved us $10 million of estate tax because Grandpa wouldn't have done the planning if he wasn't running away from the banks. Good thing, bad thing. I had this experience Wednesday morning. I had a big job I had to get done. I promised it for the client. It was going to take me 3 hours to do it. I woke up at 5 o'clock, got to the office at 5:45, key didn't open the door. My new driver had reversed the keys. Yes, I screamed at 5:45 in the morning. I probably woke up some homeless people. But then I said, hey, good thing, bad thing, who knows? How can I make this a good thing? And I got in my car and I started the 30-minute drive to the house and back to get the right keys. The first thing was I had my dictaphone with me and I had been procrastinating a week and a half writing a letter to a client that client really wanted that letter. It wasn't that important, but the client really wanted the letter. So I said, at least I can get that letter done. And I dictated that letter the whole way to the house. Then I couldn't get in the house. I had to wake Marcia up. The dogs went outside. One ran away. I called Debbie, asked her to come in early to let me in. So that was 15 minutes. Came back to the office, finished the letter. So I got to the office around 7. And then I said, you know, I've been thinking I need to delegate more to Brandon, my new associate. And I don't have time now to do this job that I promised the client. Hey, Brandon. Boom. I didn't think Brandon could do it. That's why I didn't delegate it to Brandon. Don't anyone here tell Brandon that. So I also didn't have time to finish the letter. So the letter I dictated, I gave to one of the brighter paralegals. Normally, I would have micromanaged that letter. I would have gotten the draft back, and I would have rewritten it myself. I would have redictated it, then I would have reviewed it again. The third draft, it would have gone out. It would have been a darn good letter. It would have been an A+ letter. But my paralegal Shelley was able to make it a B+ letter, and I didn't have to do anything else to it whatsoever. The first paragraph was, I have dictated this letter, but not yet closely reviewed it. A paralegal put it together, but here it is. So Brandon did the first job, and he did it beautifully. By 1 o'clock, I reviewed it with him. It took me 25 minutes to do what I thought was going to take me 3 hours. It took him 6 hours. His hourly rate is much lower than mine. And Shelley did a beautiful job on that letter. I read that letter yesterday morning, and I wouldn't change a thing. Now I have an extra house key and an extra office key hidden in the back of my Lexus in a secret compartment. So that's not going to happen to me again, right? So now everybody here has had that experience.
Yes.
And you can always talk to a client about that experience. You can always move it back around. Or you can say, and I often say this to clients, I say, you know, what's your net worth? $6 million. When you were in high school, did you ever imagine you would have a net worth of $6 million? No, I would have been happy with $1 million. Okay, so this problem, which you haven't slept for 3 years now because of this problem, I'm the 4th lawyer you've seen, is at worst $1 million problem. Yeah. Okay, that's tax deductible, so after taxes you're going to lose $600,000. You're still going to be worth $5,000,004. Yeah. Okay, would you rather lose your pinky or $600,000? Well, I think I'd rather lose the $600,000. Okay, why are you upset? You're in a good situation, not a bad situation. It's all up here. Here's another example of it. I used to get upset every time the roof leaked, or every time a computer broke, every time something would happen. Oh, damn, another $1,500, another $2,500. Until I realized, why don't I just say that I have a $100,000 budget in our law firm for unexpected expenses. And no matter what happens, as long as I don't hit the 100, I am the happiest camper you ever saw. So now when the office manager comes up to me and says, hey, we had to spend $2,500. Great, we got another $97,500 left in the budget. And we never hit the 100 because I always budget for the problem. Another thing, we don't allow negativity in our law firm. We just don't have negative people in our law firm. If we have somebody, negativity is absolutely contagious. It's depressing, it's contagious, it's bad for productivity. So a complaining employee we sit down with, and say, look, we all have a bad day, we all have an expression of negativity, but this can't be the place where you work if you're negative. We just don't have it here. We don't have it here. And I think our team appreciates that. We have a lot of, some of them are here today. You've got Debbie back there and Ginger and Jason. I think they appreciate the fact that I need this to be a really nice place for them to work. I need this to be a really nice place for me to work, because we all do much better work when we're happy. We need our clients to be happy. We need our referral sources to be happy. So Srikumar's book on happiness at work is a great book on that. Now, I want to mention two other things that are guaranteed to help you with your mental state, and will also help clients with the mental state. And one of them is on page 50, which is also in your ledger sheet, and it's going to be our exercise. But the other is mentioned in the outline, and it is, in my mind, absolutely essential, and that is that you have a daily task list. I cannot be as happy as I am day to day unless I have my daily task list. So I'm not sure where it is in the outline, but I'm just going to tell you what I do. I have one legal size sheet of paper, and I have one column where I handwrite first thing in the morning or last thing in the evening, everything I want to get done that next day or that day. I live in a day-tight compartment, and I'm only going to worry about what I need to do that day. If I need to do something today for next Thursday, I'm going to do it today. It's going to go on my list. I'm going to handwrite it. Now, what happens when I handwrite it? Something really magical happens. My conscious mind and my subconscious mind are both thinking about it. And even though I copy the same thing over from yesterday because I didn't get it done, I'll think of an idea, I'll think of who to delegate to, I'll think about it. It's just a nanosecond, right? How many people do this, by the way? How many people do this? So then what do? I write it all down, and there's no flipping way I'm going to get through half of it. Right? You wrote it all down, and there's no flipping way you got through half of it. And here's where, part of the conversation we're having today is, what are you not going to do? Because you can't do everything you want to do, and you especially can't do something really cool and new if you don't get rid of something. So I then prioritize these items. I personally put an E with a circle if I can solve it by a simple email. And then first thing in the morning, I do those 6 or 7 little things that all they require is an email. And then I put an A next to the most important things and a B next to the most important things, and then I don't even put C's because I'm not getting to them. They're just on the list. Next to those items, I write down who I can delegate them to. So I have a list of the important things that I'm going to do and the important things that the other people in the office are going to do. And then I don't worry about anything on that list but the thing I'm working on while I'm working on it. It's already on the list. See, so I don't have to wait, my subconscious mind does not have to wake me up at 2 o'clock in the morning and say, ooh, you forgot to write down that you're doing a letter to Rick Bunshu. You better remind yourself, because it's already on today's list if I did it last night, or if it's on tomorrow's list if I only have to copy it over. So if you have this discipline that you will write down once a day, the best tool is the Franklin Day Planner in my opinion, but I just use a legal size sheet of paper. And I use a little form, and there's 2 lines for Marcia if I need to do anything for Marcia. Don't tell Marcia she only has 2 lines. All these lines. The other thing I do is and these are all habits, the other thing I do is I keep contemporaneous track of my time. And if I usually get in the office by 6, and if you called me at 11:30 and said, how much time did you build? I'm going to say, I can tell you what I did every minute from 6 until 11:30. And I am now at 5.5 hours of billable time. And that has to be my habit, because if that's not my habit, I lose the time. So when Shelley comes in or Debbie comes in, I need to talk to you about the Joneses. Okay, first thing, let me write down the word Jones. It is 10:22. Okay, we're done talking about the Jones. Point 2. That is essential. Now, A lot of people say, I'm so glad I don't practice law anymore because I don't have to keep track of my time. I don't have to keep track of my time. It's a habit. My subconscious mind does this. I don't consider it to be an interruption. It's a habit. So one of the things we want to do today is we want to talk about your habits. And because that subconscious mind runs those habits. Like I said, when that kid on the skateboard runs in front of you, you don't have to say, oh, I need to make a conscious decision to slow down my car. You slam on the brakes. So we want to talk about those habits. We want to think about those habits like they are the programs on your cell phone. You turn your cell phone on and they all come up. And we need to get rid of some of these apps and we need to advance with others. But page 50 now, I want to just do another little 6-minute exercise. On page 50, another big way, and I do this with almost all clients, is what some people call a positive focus. I call it a positive accelerator because I don't want to get sued for calling it a positive focus if somebody else does. But here's the deal. When I sit down with a client, no matter who they are or what they are, I want to talk about something that they can be proud of and that they want to talk about. Oh, John, I saw you up on the billboard. Your company must be doing great. I met Mrs. Jones. You're treating her. You helped her lose 30 pounds. Your wife looks beautiful. I want to be very positive with that client. I want that client to feel like it's a pep rally for them. I walk into the conference room. I'm friendly. I make eye contact. I know the color of their eyes. I'm glad to see them. And I'm going to talk about what they want to talk about as long as they want to talk about it. Because I want them to have confidence, and I want them to feel liked. I want them to feel loved. Because then they can make good decisions. So let's just take 5 minutes now, page 50, and I want you to write down some positive things. Because here's the other thing. If you write down 3 positive things that you did in the day, or 3 positive things that you have going for you, and you write them down. Sorry, you got to write them. It's not good enough to type them. It's not good enough to circle something on an Excel spreadsheet and hit click. You have to write it. You have to write it. If you write these things down before you go to bed, you will sleep so much better. Okay, so by the way, at page 64, I have all I need to organize my day. Page 64. It's a legal size long one that's photographed here short. But all I have is on the top left, or the middle column, master projects. That's where I write down what I really need to get done that day. And there's not that many. And then on the left bottom, my delegations, what I'm going to try to get the other people on our team to do. And then C. Marsh only has one line, I lied. Family has another line, they're lucky. Then food, exercise, I can keep track of that. Now, when I get an interruption during the day and somebody wants something that's not on my list, I write it on the right-hand side. It doesn't go on today's list. It goes on tomorrow's list. If you call me at 10 in the morning and say, Alan, I need XYZ, I'm not going to do it today. It's not going to interrupt me today unless it really needs to interrupt me today. I don't even think about it that much. I'm in the middle of something else. I write it on the right-hand side. So the next day, I cross off what I've done from the left-hand side. And by the way, you get a dopamine hit when you cross something off. Right? That check mark, dopamine hit. We're going to talk later about helper's high and other ways to get high, which probably is popular on a college campus. So, but that's what I do. So now, go find a new friend. Find somebody on the other side if you can. Now we have an even number of people. And just spend 4 minutes each talking about this positivity exercise, or talk about your daily task list, whichever you want. I'll give you 1 minute to find your friend and then we'll